So my name, as I said, is Kevin Luther. I'm the owner and winemaker here at Voluptuary and Lucid. And I'm born and raised in Sacramento. We both are. And I went to UC Davis and got the viticulture and enology degree and studied around the world, Argentina, Australia, New Zealand, California, learning winemaking hands-on under different winemakers, because a degree can only teach you so much. And then came back to the Sacramento area and ran some other wineries in the area, including up in Auburn area in Placer County. And we're actually drinking a little bit of Knee Deep Brewing as we're hanging out and doing some wine tasting tonight. They're based up in Auburn, really cool microbrewery. And our guest musician we have here today is from up in the Auburn area, Jalal Haddad. So, woo, Jalal! So we're gonna have some live music later. We're gonna be tasting some awesome wines, and so then after working up in that area and running some different wineries, I came back to the Sacramento area to launch Voluptuary Wines, which is a winery really meant to just bring together my passions for organic and natural and sustainable business and winemaking and agriculture with an experimental ethic. And so I use a lot of exotic woods in my wine and a lot of experimental techniques and revived ancient techniques. So we'll talk a bit about that today in the wines we're tasting through. So launched that. Also later launched Lucid, which is my more easygoing mainstream style where I take those experimental methods and bring them into a little bit more of just a straightforward, crowd-pleasing, easy drinking style. So next week we're going to be tasting Lucid wines. So that being said, let me give you guys a brief tour of the winery, and this is going to be truly brief. So, all right, so I'm going to pivot these cameras over here. We have the entryway to the winery over here, and we have over here the barrels and tanks, and my bike, which is how I bike here so I can drink while I bring you guys through the tasting. And then we're back to our tasting setup in Jerome. So that concludes our tour. So thank you guys for joining us for that tour. I take you on that silly tour because I want to emphasize how tiny we are. We are about as far small business as you can get. I launched this a couple years ago, started making the wines just as a side project while running other wineries, and then, it's living the dream. I quit the day job, launched Voluptuary Wine on my own, rented a warehouse and just started making wines. And was about to launch our tasting room when, COVID hit and we couldn't launch our tasting room. So we had to pivot and do these virtual tastings, and this is just blowing up. So you guys buying these tasting kits and joining us for these virtual tastings is really, it's saved our business, and that's been huge. So thank you guys so much. And during that period, as we've been blowing up in the last 6 months and taking off, Jerome joined me. So
I don't come from the same wine background as Kevin. I didn't go to college for that or study that, although I've tasted along with him for a couple decades now. I came from a different industry. I was a director of design and development at actually the company that now makes all those sneeze guards, keeping everybody safe. When Kevin started blowing up, I decided to leave that. Been doing that for a couple decades, only thing I'd ever done, and Kevin needed help, and it's a tough life, but I decided to come help him out. So I'm here doing this, and I handle basically everything he doesn't, since we're a two-person company. So I do, some of the sales and advertising and all of the distribution and logistics. A lot of you know me from the delivery routes and a lot of the other little side projects and things like that. So actually on that note, doing the deliveries and distributing these around to everybody, that's one of the cool things about my job, is I get to see all these people connecting despite the quarantine and just all coming together through this virtual medium. And so I like to do some shout outs to the people taking part in different ways. And today, well, one, I wanted to thank all the people who showed up with packaging for me on the delivery route. As I mentioned, I use the packaging that we receive to make new packaging, and we had a few people Rose, Sandy, and Denise each dropped me off a huge amount of packaging while I was delivering, which is great. We were pretty much out. The next week of shipments are going to go out safe and on time and with nothing used that doesn't need to be. Also, you guys are really like you know me now. Like I'm out on my delivery routes and I'm getting like all sorts of little snacks. I got lemon bars from Teresa, Maggie, and Annie. Finished them all while I was on the route. Sandy bought me lunch. Actually, Nicole hooked me up with this nice fat pre-roll joint. So I saved it till I got home, but still appreciate it, everybody. That's wonderful.
Those are all a good combination.
Absolutely. A lot of the usual groups, our big customers are here today. All the people over on S&T Street, Lollygagger and the Just family. We got a lot of longtime customers like Tyra and Carrie Boyle. But we also this week, our family really found out about this, and they've always supported us, but we're not the most technologically advanced family. But everybody showed up in force. Every one of our aunts and uncles and cousins, got themselves hooked up with a Facebook so that they could be on here. We got like a couple dozen of you guys on here today, and that's awesome. Sorry I couldn't smuggle wine into Utah for you fine folk there. But apparently that's a thing. Also wanted to do a shout out. Today is our older brother John's birthday.
Yeah.
So he's not on Facebook. He's not here. But that would be so awesome if those of you who know him, text him, call, just let him know.
Happy birthday, John.
Yeah, thanks for the shout outs. Well, on that note, as he's done those shout outs, I want to give some, if you see on the side looking like I'm hovering over the computer, I'm checking the comments so I can reply to you guys a little bit and give some shout outs to people joining us. So, hey Carol, thanks for your comment. And what's up, Brett? How you doing? We got Sonia joining from SoCal, and Rachel here in Sacramento, or Rochelle. Hey Sarah, actually, Smiles Miles just joined us in the studio audience as well, and on Facebook.
You may recognize the laughter.
her famous laugh. And then we also have Carrie Boyle brought a lot of people to join us for this live thing. I can keep giving shout outs here. We got tons of comments. Tiffany and Tammy and hey everybody, Marg join in. That's our aunt, Annalise. So man, I could keep going, but I'll stop so you can get into some wine tasting. So without further ado, we can launch into a little bit of wine tasting here. Again, if you're just joining us, what we're doing is we're tasting through our voluptuary wines here today. These are the fully organically certified grown grapes. It is organically made, sulfite-free, vegan, natural wine that I make with a real experimental approach. So really different ways of winemaking than most people.
And just so you guys know how to do this and follow along, you've all got something pretty much like this, minor variations, and then your tasting sheet to go along with it. They all line up from light to dark along with the sheet, so you can use that to follow along with the wines in case we forget to mention or don't go over those details. And you can see the prices on there as well. So you can just pop these out of the foam and then use your sheet to follow along as we're doing it.
Perfect. Thank you, Jerome. So this first wine is the V2.
It's French.
Tethered Sky Picpoul Blanc. So this is a grape variety called Picpoul Blanc. It originates in France. That's therefore the French accent. And it's really relatively unknown grape there. It's known for, in as much as it's known for making a really light, simple white wine. So you can go ahead and give that a taste. If you see me doing this swirling thing, people sometimes ask, why do you swirl? It agitates the wine and releases aromatics.
And it makes you look fancy.
And it makes you look fancy, especially if you have your pinky out. That's really important.
So this is for those of you who are white wine drinkers. A lot of Kevin's are reds or ambers or rosés, things done in different styles. I believe this is your only white done in a traditional white style, correct?
Kind of. So it is traditional in the sense that it's not fermented on the skins. So that's correct. So most white wines are fermented just the juice. So you have a whole grape, stems and skins and seeds and juice, and you squeeze off the juice and ferment it by itself, usually in a stainless steel tank. That's a pretty typical white wine approach, your average Sauvignon Blanc or simple Chardonnay. Fermenting on the skins is a technique I use a lot that we'll come up on later. But this one is fermented just the juice. What makes it kind of different is two things. I fermented it in barrels. Most people ferment in stainless steel tanks. I fermented in used French oak barrels, which gives it just a little bit of oak influence. Not too much, but just a really subtle oak influence. Because they're not new oak barrels, where you would have a bigger oak flavor. They're used ones, so it's just a subtle flavor. The thing that makes it really non-traditional is that most white wines are fermented and bottled quickly. Because white wines and rosés are typically thought of simple and fruity, kind of straightforward like that. By aging a little bit longer, it picks up a little bit more, somewhat sherry-like flavors, just a little bit more savoriness and spiciness. So you're gonna have this like crisp citrus, but also a little bit of this pastry, savory, I say subtle mineral and sea spray, oyster shell, all those fancy wine terms that winemakers use when they swirl and put their pinky out.
I like those descriptors. Those make me feel good about my food pairing. So come up when we get to there. But
Exactly. So this wine just lends itself so naturally to food pairings. So
we have a question from the audience here.
Yeah, so Candace Lollygagger says, the V2 is my all-time favorite. I'll be very sad when this small batch runs out. Any plans to make it again?
So great question.
Everybody gets a great question other than me. He's like, yeah, sort of.
It's okay.
Go ahead.
Great question, Lolly. You're very charming. So yeah, the V2. I'm going to be making similar styled wines, but not the actual exact wine this is. The main reason is because last year I didn't make it. I'm actually going to be buying it again this year. So I'll have this wine again, but it's going to be about a year from now. I will have a wine made somewhat similar to this style, but it's going to be a Chenin Blanc. We actually tasted it
Last week.
Yeah, was it last week? Yeah. So the Chenin Blanc is the closest thing to this V2 that we're going to have for about a year. So yeah, there's only a few more cases of this V2 left. So I would definitely...
There's your solution. Stock up on what we have left, and then you won't have like a shortage. You know, hoarding is encouraged nowadays.
Exactly. So yeah, so this wine is from Terra Alta Vineyard, run by Bokish Vineyards. It's actually they're over in Lodi, and we're gonna have Marcus Bokish from Bokish Vineyards joining us next week for our 2 weeks from now for our Bokish Focus, where we're gonna be talking about his vineyard a little bit and our wines made from his grapes. So that's where it's from. It is a 2017 vintage. So as I mentioned, this was from a couple of years ago. Super small production. We only made 1 barrel of this wine. And my pairings for this wine. My life pairing for this is reading a book by a rocky seashore. You know, maybe Point Reyes or something like that, Bodega Bay, if you're out in California. And my literary pairing for this is a repeat from a few weeks ago, if you guys watched last time we had this wine, but it's from Ernest Hemingway. It's as I ate the oysters with their strong taste of the sea and their faint metallic taste that the cold white wine washed away, leaving only the sea taste and the succulent texture. And as I drank their cold liquid from each shell and washed it down with the crisp taste of the wine, I lost the empty feeling and began to be happy and make plans. Ernest Hemingway, one of my favorite authors. And one of my favorite musicians is my music pairing today. Bob Dylan, When the Ship Comes In, really cool song. And then my food pairing for this, and I want your input on this too. For me, this is a seafood and like maybe fish tacos type of wine. Oysters or oyster mushrooms are a natural pairing with this wine as well.
Yeah, and actually that kind of parallels a lot of what I had. Fresh oysters, maybe with like a Meyer lemon squeezed on it. Not like super cut, like not for like oysters Rockefeller, something nice and minerally and, you know, fresh from the sea. Similarly, light sushi, not like crazy deep fried sauced up California style, but just some nice fish, rice. Really good with those kind of crisp, clean, like seafood flavors. Similarly, it could work with a lot of like herbaceous, light, like an arugula salad with mint, you know, toasted almonds or cashews in that, maybe some mandarin orange slices. get those citrus notes, a little bit of that crisp, but still a little bit spicy sort of notes on it. So those are things I would recommend, or even like, some cheeses and fruits would work with that as well.
Yeah.
I'd recommend more like sharp ones, sharp cheddar, maybe a parm or something.
Yeah, because this has that kind of that savory note that goes with that kind of stronger tasting cheese.
Right. Whereas your skin contact wines get smoother and like funkier. This is more like on your crisp end.
Absolutely. So, on that note, we can move into the second wine here. So, the second one is our V3 The Lover, also Picpoul Blanc. Oh yeah, he's got his tasting kits.
You can top me up. No, this is fine. I'm kidding. I'm just. And then I am going to be pouring for our studio audience as well. Everybody gets a drink.
So yeah, that first one. What did you guys think of that? Feel free to shout out your thoughts on that wine in the comments. And if you guys have any questions on that first wine or this second one, throw them out in the comments. We have our studio audience, Miles will shout out your questions to us. So,
and I would recommend, for those of you who haven't, read the article in, was it the Lodi Wine News?
Yeah, LodiWine.com. It's a blog.
Incredible article. One of the most well-written articles I've seen, not only because of his wine knowledge, but just his use of the language, quotes, just brought in a lot of other cultural and historical parallels. Yeah. And it was on the 3 different peak pools.
Yeah.
Really good article. And also, it does a good job of describing Kevin's ethos and approach to making the one wine 3 different ways, like he do with a food presented 3 ways in a fancy dish. So.
Yeah, and that was Randy Caparoso over at LodiWine.com. So, the second wine you can crack open, pour in your glass, give it a smell.
And normally I'll just drink from my little shot glasses, but this is the fancy brand, so I wore my sport coat and I'm drinking out of a glass this time.
And that's his business mask.
Yeah.
It's a
safety first.
Business casual. Okay, so this wine, same exact grape, same vintage, same grape, same vineyard down the line. The difference here is that whereas that first one was fermented in a neutral oak barrel, this one was fermented on the skins. So harvest the grape, separate the stems, you still have the whole berries there. Now, the skins from that first wine, I added to this wine. So it's 200% skin contact. So you hear about orange wines or skin contact wines sometimes amongst, hipster natural winemakers. This is 200%, so extra. And then after that much intensity from 200% skin contact, which just for me gives you a lot of like peach, apricot, floral notes, almost on this dried side of it. So like dried fruit, dried flowers, potpourri. I aged it on a little more new oak, some neutral, some new, which gives a little bit more vanilla coconut caramel, which brings into this pastry area almost, and then finishing it on the yeast leaves, stirring those yeast up.
When you say finishing it on the yeast leaves, what does that mean?
So great question.
Because for a lot of people, they're going to be like, yeast leaves? What's a yeast leaf?
Yeah, fancy wine terms. We steal this from the French. Lees is essentially their term for yeast.
So yeast
in
yeast?
Wine. The yeast. Yeah. And after the fermentation, it'll settle to the bottom of the barrel. And if you just leave it there or filter the wine off the top, you get a kind of clean, straightforward, fruity wine. If you leave it in there and stir it in, it gives the wine like a creaminess or richness. If you ever used nutritional yeast in cooking, it gives a similar effect to that, where it adds this umami type flavor.
And that's why this one has that little more funk in it, and like with Go-Bell with a little more things with umami, mushrooms, and funky cheese.
Exactly, which is what brings this wine, all of those characteristics, bring this wine towards a red wine flavor characteristic. So a little bit more weight to the palate too. You're going to notice that skin contact gives it some tannins, a little bit of dryness and weight. So, all right.
We have a question from the audience?
Yeah, just a couple comments. Donnell Brown says, striking color difference. And more of that sherry note that Eric mentioned above, totally dried fruit. And then Tammy says, I'm not a fan of white wine, but if I had to drink it, the V3 would be my choice.
Yeah. And that's why I'm the same way. And the V2 is great. I know it's a lot of people's favorites, but this L1 skin contact and the V3 the lover, I really enjoy because I'm a red wine drinker, and it's a way to and this is kind of a common theme with a lot of what Kevin does, is make it accessible. It's a white wine, but it's done in a way that red wine drinkers can enjoy it, or whiskey or beer drinkers as well, with the yeast added in.
Yeah. So yeah, it in some ways is a white wine for red wine drinkers. I think is a kind of cool thing about this. So, all right, awesome. That's our 2 pick pools. So I'm going to give a little poll out here.
Did you have any pairings or descriptors for it?
Yeah,
I do.
Thank you for that. I missed that. All right, so real quickly, the life pairing for this is being yourself, even, perhaps especially, when you aren't what people expect, aka letting your freak flag fly. Because this is definitely a quirky wine, a very experimental wine. On that note, my literary pairing for this is from Lewis Carroll in Alice in Wonderland. And the quote is, "You're mad, bonkers, completely off your head. But I'll tell you a secret. All the best people are." So,
I like that.
and then my music pairings for this are Forrest Whitaker by Brother Ali, a very uplifting song about being who you are, and In My Mind by Amanda Palmer, another song about being who you are and accepting, the kind of craziness that's become of your life as, the right thing. So, those are my pairings, and then my food pairings for this, cornbread I've mentioned before. This has this weird cornbread caramel note in it.
Because it has the barrel, like oak and like some of those caramely, like baking spice notes there, but then it's still got, your like fruity, dried fruit notes that all kind of comes together with the corn and the...
Do you have any other thoughts on food pairings?
I do. Well, this one, I think this is true with a lot of whites, but with a fruit or cheese plate, things like that, but different than the last pick pool because of the way it's produced and the flavor profile it has. So this, I think, would work better with a lot of either like creamy or maybe even like funky cheeses or similar with fruits. Like as opposed to like you'd have like a green apple or Meyer lemon or like a really like crisp pear with the first, something that's more like soft, like a red apple or peaches would be really good with this, or brie cheese or blue cheese. Or it might even be nice to get, the different peak pools and a variety of cheeses and fruits and see what works for you. But I think that creamy, note there really tends to lead that way. Also, and this kind of goes with some of the things you were saying, is I think this one would be a really good one with fruit pastries, tarts, or especially like I want to say like autumnal, like autumn fruits. Like a really flaky crust apple pie would be fantastic with this for me.
Yeah.
So
good ideas. Those are really good pairings. It looks like we may have another question from the crowd.
Oh, just a comment. I hope that's okay because I really appreciate these
please,
comments.
yes.
So Sonia says, "Love the freak flag in bonkers pairing and advice. This is a funky wine that grows on you like the coolest people."
Yeah.
I like that.
very awesome.
That's right. That's honestly one of my themes of Voluptuary is just this, the coolest stuff is always the kind of crazy, harder to get to know stuff. When I was a teenager, I remember a lot of my favorite music I hated at first, and then I got to really love it. A lot of punk, a lot of experimental music that I came to love later. I think a lot of the most interesting stuff isn't immediately lovable. You kind of you're like, wow, that's weird. I like it.
Kind of goes back to, as you mentioned, it's got more umami, and that's good. Like a food descriptor for what you just described. It's something that you have a hard time getting. It's generally like something funky, something a little bit harsh, but if you get to like it, it's fantastic.
Yeah, true. Yeah, so in a little bit here, we're going to have a little bit of live music accompaniment joining us. Joel, would you like to join us in a little bit here?
Sure.
Is that ready? All right, cool. I'll give you a second to get your guitar ready
Better now than
and
later.
chat. But all right. So for everyone just joining us, if you've just chimed in, we're tuned in, I should say. This is Kevin and Jerome from Voluptuary and Lucid Wine. Today we are focusing on our Voluptuary wine lineup. We've just finished our 2 pick pools, and in fact, I've just thrown out here a poll for which is your favorite of those first 2 wines, the first 2 pick pools. So far, the Lover was in the lead. Now it's a tie. It's coming along, and
It's like a horse race.
Yeah, the best thing about my day is day drinking. I'm sorry. The best thing about day drinking is is how funny I become.
Go home, you're drunk.
So that's coming in as a 10%. It's slowly dropping down. So now we'll tell you the results of that poll in a moment. For a little break here from the wine tasting and my rants about wine technique, we're going to have Jalal Haddad come on stage and play a song for y'all.
Stage left. That makes me think this is the third time. There will be others. Alright, well, I told him, let's not wait too long. I don't want to wait till the fourth or fifth wine before I go, because I'm day drinking too. This is about the end of the world. I should mention, this song predates the end of the world. Where will you go, my beautiful friends? Where will you live when everything is dead? Will you survive when the world is on fire? With smoke in your eyes and poison in your water? Will you pack up your bags, escape to the sea, or resign to the woods of coverless trees? Will you wander the desert in search of a friend you'll find only roaches are left to the end? You're lonely, alone, and crazy with friends. You struggle with comfort, you fear your own death. Fortune, you were born in the land of the free, but you piss where you skip, and you shit where you eat. So you draft up a letter of grievance to the gods. You choose your words wisely, you organize your thoughts. You mail it on Sunday, then dine with your friends. By Monday, our spinning is come to end. You remind yourself often that things could be worse. The notions you believe and you often rehearse. Compared to the rats, you're in very good health. Compared to the lion, you thought of yourself. Woohoo! That's what the end of the world looks like, everybody.
That's seriously like the highlight of this show for me. It's his music. I bookmark that on my computer and go back and listen to it during the week.
So my wine's not the
Yeah, it's
highlight
great.
of your week.
That was great.
I just replay Kevin giggling.
Thank you, Jalal. That was amazing. I absolutely agree. I come in here Sunday morning or Saturday night if I've drank too much and can't drive home after the live tasting, and replay it and blast Jalal's songs on my stereo we have here at the winery. So yeah, thank you, Jalal. That was awesome.
I play it on repeat, but for the same reason. Like when I have to walk, I got a 45-minute walk if I drank too much, so I get to listen to it a few times.
We're very responsible. We may we may get drunk with you during our live tastings, but we do not drink and drive. We walk or bike it if we have to. So y'all, that's a great thing about drinking at home. So thank you all for joining us from your homes. So all right, the winner of this poll is, let's see the results. 56% voted for Tethered Sky. 38% voted for The Lover, so that was close actually. Really tight competition. And then 4% voted for the best thing about day drinking is how funny I am. So, so thank you guys for voting. And also I want to give a shout out. We have a bunch of people joining us from San Francisco. So how's it going in San Francisco? I'd shout out names, but there's about 4 or 5 of you made comments. So thank you all for your comments. And oh, cool, we've got Carrie Luther and Kelly, a couple cousins of ours joining us live. So, hey everyone, hey Kelly, hey Carrie. Cool, now we're on to the red wines. So, this third wine, your first red, is going to be V4 The Source. It is a blend of Pinot Noir and Grenache. It's a kind of quirky blend, again, with this whole voluptuary stuff. I wanted to do things that are a little different. So most red blends go for really dark red varieties. Cabernet Sauvignon, you know, Zinfandel, stuff like that.
And he's not talking those down. He does that too.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
you know, that's not the only way to blend.
Exactly. So this wine is meant to capture more of the light red fruits. So Pinot Noir and Grenache, both red grape varieties that more focus on a light red fruit, a strawberry cherry type profile.
And this is also, it was aged in French oak barrels with cherry wood introduced. So that helps reinforce that, and it kind of comes through. It lingers on the palate a little bit. You get that cherry note.
Absolutely. So that alternative wood technique is something I do that I've never met another winemaker who does that. Oak is the only thing used, but coming from a woodworking family, all of my brothers asked me why we only use oak. There's no particularly good reason other than it makes a good structural barrel, but other woods add really cool flavor to wine, I found, through experimentation.
And some of them do not. But that's why it takes a lot of experimentation and
Yes.
kind of honed in on what woods work and what woods work in with what varietals and with what styles.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're also going to get a bit of a warming spices, this clove, cinnamon, cardamom kind of characteristic going on. And I also get a bit of a black peppery smokiness, like a char kind of thing going on here.
Yeah, I could see some of that.
Yeah. So this is 2018 vintage, organically grown. The Grenache is from Calaveras County, and the Pinot Noir is from Santa Cruz area.
So you said it's a 2018. Is that the vintage that is just on the verge of sold out, or is that the vintage that is just about to get released?
Nice. That is an awesomely prepped and loaded question. I like that.
Leading the witness! Go ahead.
Yeah, so this is the almost sold out one. This
Okay.
is the previous vintage. So last week we tried the new vintage one. This is the old vintage. So, yeah. So
Question from the audience?
Yeah, a lot of people keep saying it tastes like cinnamon toast, cinnamon apple pie.
And that's what, when Kevin was saying it has the warming spices in it. He used that term because it's one I use a lot. It's an old cooking term they use for things like clove, cardamom, cinnamon. They're considered warming spices because while they don't actually physically warm you up, they have that kind of taste. You'd have it in a mulled wine or baked in a pastry. And things like mint or basil or some of those others, those are considered cooling spices. You know, it's that menthol type effect. It's got like almost a wind chill factor. So when you're saying that about the cinnamon and those other tastes, that really parallels what Kevin was saying when he says it has those kind of like spicy, warming spice notes.
yeah,
So very good comment, very good appearance.
yeah.
Pretty unanimous.
Yeah.
Drink it with
Yeah.
cinnamon toast crunch when you're out in the morning.
Right? Great breakfast drinking pairing. Yeah. And you really want to get some day drinking in. So
I would think it is because I do think some of them are like an early day or late night. This is one, since we're kind of on there, I would suggest as like the like perfect dinner wine. Some of them are made for others. So you drink the rosé when you're out gardening, or you drink like the Zin when you're like at the end of your day. This is a perfect one for dinner.
yeah. So I somewhat agree with you. I have a slightly different perspective. It overlaps with yours, but my whole thing with this is my life pairing for this, and my thought on this wine is this is almost like a wine that has a couple different perspectives to it.
We should compare notes more. Sorry.
That's good. We can't just always agree, So this has a little bit of that evening vibe, but it also has a little bit of summery vibe. Like you could chill this down and have it more refreshing, or you could have it warm and have it with dinner. But my life pairing for this, I'm gonna segue into that. My life pairing is a summer bonfire at the beach, and a friend, maybe Jalal, is playing a guitar.
So if you guys are ever hanging out with Jalal, he's playing guitar, like
Yeah.
perfect life pairing for this specific event.
I'm available.
Or I would recommend it, but
Yeah. We're your friends who know.
As always, I'm available.
he says he's available weeknights, so message in.
Hit him up. Or if you don't have Jalal, you know, to that friend who knows that one Green Day song they play, that works too. It's like a best
Everybody
substitute.
The chorus over and over with the one chord they know.
Exactly. So, okay, the literary pairing for this is from J.R.R. Tolkien. It's, if more of us valued food and cheer and song above hoarded gold, it would be a merrier world. And my music pairings for this are Days Like These by Cat Empire and Summer Nights by Iration. Oh, and The Sound of Sunshine Going Down by Michael Franti.
All like dusk references. If I'm
Yeah,
not seeing
exactly. And I'm like, I play with a theme by life pairings, music pairings, literary pairings. I'll kind of try to capture the essence of the wine without getting like over obsessed with the technical details, which I do first. I finish with the other stuff. So yeah, you can find this wine. Those first two, super quirky, super small production. Pretty much can only buy them from us, and they're almost sold out. This wine we make a little more of. Granted, this vintage is almost sold out. The next vintage is about to be released as this sells out. This is at the Sacramento Natural Foods Co-op here in Sacramento, obviously. It's also at Localis. The new vintage is currently on their pairing menu. Available tonight and tomorrow, so give them a call and order. They have an awesome jerk quail pairing with this. And this is also seasonally at the Rind here in Sacramento.
there's a special. Is that actually the special still going on?
Mhm.
Yeah. So if you want to get that quail entree to pair along with this, it's $20 if you call in and tell them the code hipster. That's how they'll know
Yeah.
you're a friend of Kevin's.
I forgot about that. Yeah. Cool. All right. And we've got some folks joining us. We have our Utah folks who couldn't get the wine are joining us with some orange liqueur.
Wait, they let you have liqueur there?
Yeah, that's
It's not
Mark.
Sunday,
Hey,
it's
Mark.
the Sabbath.
Yeah, and then we've got all sorts of good folks. So cool.
Did you have any food pairings on this?
My food pairing is that jerk quail from Localis. I think everyone should order that. It's,
I do.
really good.
Well, and I agree. That's a great price. And last time I was throwing out a whole bunch of his dishes as pairings for things, which I do think they got very reasonable prices and incredible food. But I had a few people ask me, can you give some pairings of things that are a little more everyday? I might already have in my pantry, things that it's not going to be a brand new experience. And while I would always encourage new experiences and getting outside your comfort zone, as I mentioned, I think this is a fantastic everyday dinner pairing, and really anything Italian I think would be fantastic with this. Specifically, a couple ingredients that could be a base for a lot of things that this reminds me of are tomatoes and peppers, especially your more like mild like bell peppers, not like habanero or something like that. So really like a pasta with red sauce, stuffed bell peppers, a lot of things along those. Even like something like I want to say very like I want to say like reminiscent of our youth, like sloppy joes or something like that, where it's just got those like tomatoey, juicy like type of notes to it.
I could feel that because this is a wine that, while it has some acidity, and of course a tomato or pepper dish is going to have some acidity.
Tomato at a high acidity level.
But that acidity is also balanced by a richness. I don't want to overuse the talk of umami tonight, but this is another one that has that balance of acid and umami.
You can't overuse umami.
That's umami's flesh. So yeah, I think that this wine definitely plays with those elements well. So cool. That is V4. We are going to hop into the next wine now, our Pinot Noir. This is the fourth wine in your lineup. It is 100% Pinot Noir, and this label is the drinking tree. So pour myself some of that, and go ahead and pour yourself that. Give it a smell, and as we're getting into that, and you smell that, Jerome is also, well, after he finishes pouring for the studio audience, he's going to show you guys the subscription products we have here at Voluptuary Organic. It's a kind of cool thing we do. Instead of a wine club, we do a monthly subscription box. So, yeah, here, I'll turn this other one for you, Jerome.
So you guys can see what we have here. Hold on, let me turn on the lights. And I'm going to describe them in a little more detail than we have previously because Kevin is putting it on a poll or a questionnaire and want to get some feedback on it. So, what you see here is some of the previous or future gifts that we have that go along with our monthly subscriptions. And the way those work is you get anywhere between 1 to 3 bottles, either Voluptuary, Lucid, or a combination, depending on what your tastes are. And along with that each month, you get free shipping and you get a local handcrafted gift. So some months that's going to be just chosen for you, and some months you'll be able to pick amongst what we have. But we don't want to just pick ourselves what we think would work. We want to get some audience feedback so that we can do this and make it so everybody's happy, and as well as giving back to local artists. So a few of the things you see here is these are some adult coloring books by Karen Chen, local artist, and they've got these really interesting detailed images, and she just came out with a new one. It's a Mandela based one, so it's more geometrical, and it's just a coloring book. She does really fantastic work, and we're actually going to have her on in a few weeks and have a drink and draw. So we'll all be able to purchase the books and play along at home. And then we'll take images of people's work and we'll display them on there so that we can all kind of share the fun. A couple others. Aaron Botto, Sacramento as well, makes these hand-poured local organic candles. And they've got a concentration stone in the bottom. So we've been giving out the grapefruit and currant flavor. She has all sorts of other ones. Again, locally made, 100% organic, and they just smell fantastic. Our Aunt Teresa makes honey. Well, I mean, technically, I guess she's got an army of bees that make the honey for her. She just puts it in little bottles with cute little labels. That we gave out a few months ago. It's one of my personal favorites. I go through that stuff like crazy. This here, and it's kind of hard to see on screen. I don't know if you guys can see that logo, but it's a branded mug for when you need to take a little wine on the go. You get your lid so you can seal it. You've got a handle, and it's got our logo on the side. And again, it's not for drinking irresponsibly, but sometimes you need a lid. You're getting in your hot tub and you don't want it sloshing around, or you want to take some on your hike so you've got something to celebrate at the mountaintop. It's a great way to haul your wine around. These here as well, this is from Yisrael Family Farms. They're local, organic, handcrafted soaps. And they also have a community garden, which they do with people from the community and then give the food back to the community, which, it's coming back in fashion, but they've been doing it for a long time. This here, cutting board, was, I believe, our first gift that we gave out. This one you can actually see some marks on there because it's been lightly used. I like my food. This is made by Marcus Ambrose Crafts. Local craftsman, does high-end work as well as charcuterie boards and things like that for people.
Alright.
Have these, hold on, I got one more too, Kevin. Little necklaces with nature encased in plastic and geometric shapes. This one hasn't gone out yet, but will be soon. And the very last one that I want to show, we have some others, but I haven't kept samples of everything. It's these fairy bottle lights. Actually very popular, and I made these ones. Well, I bought the parts and stuck them together, but very local artist. So those are our subscription gifts. So not only do we give back to the community, but you get cool, useful things, and you get wine on a discount. So something I would recommend to keep you healthy and full of wine during this time.
Yeah.
Let me align these.
Alright. There we go. So cool. Thank you, Jerome, for those subscription products and all of our cool local partners, breaking that down. I've put out a little poll here for people to answer on Facebook, everyone on Instagram and YouTube. Unfortunately, that can't publish on those, but asking which subscription product appeals to you most. What's really interesting to you? So those we vary them up month to month, but it's cool to get feedback as well. So I wanted to answer a couple of questions from the crowd here. We had Tammy asking what happened to V5, our forest bed Grenache. So that wine, the last vintage, sold out. It got into the kitchen, the Michelin star rated restaurant here in Sacramento.
It's the only one. There are a few other Michelin noted ones, like Localis, where we're also at. It's the only one that received a star. So.
Yeah, and they took it on and started going through a case or two a week. It was also a fan favorite, so it went so fast. So yeah, that one's totally sold out. We have the new vintage coming out soon. It's currently in pre-release state, so you can actually buy features on that on our website and get the new vintage, which is outstanding. It's a little richer than last vintage.
So investing in futures, so they're just pre-buying wine?
Yeah, exactly. So it's essentially a way to get the wine in case it sells out quickly, or if they just want to reserve it now and get it delivered to them in a few weeks when I finish bottling it. Yeah, it'll be there for you.
So it's not like investing long, it's just a couple weeks in advance.
Exactly. It's just a few weeks out. So, and then I had another question. Our cousin Kent asked, "What is this this big thing hanging out behind Kevin on the barrels?" This is grog, the mixing stick. So I sometimes use this to mix wine. It's also a good way for Jerome and I to test our 6-foot distance. Yeah, I named it grog. I tried to name all of my cars and bicycles and sticks. I got that on a trip down the coast and just kind of fell in love with it as a walking stick. I felt like a wizard, like Gandalf or something. So
Sarah almost died on that. He led us the long way.
Yeah.
It was fun.
Yes, it's true.
So thanks Kent for that question. Yeah, it's just kind of hanging out there like curiously. So cool. So now you guys have V6 in your glass. This is V6 Drinking Tree Pinot Noir. Really nice wine, similar to the last one, but going just a little further down the road. Obviously, it's pure Pinot Noir. To me, I get a little more black cherry. I still get some of that cinnamon characteristic, but not as intensely as that last one. There's also maybe just a little more acidity to it, a little more crispness, and a little more weight overall. So for me, this wine's a little less easygoing, a little more of a not quite big, because it's still more acid than tannins, but just a little more weighty.
Yeah, I agree with that. I actually put down on this as a kind of life pairing that this is more like for a special occasion. This is for celebration, whereas that one, and they really are like the V4, 5, and 6. It's the Pinot Noir Grenache blend, the Grenache and the Pinot. So it's like they're actually the same grapes, and maybe I got that. Yeah, I got that in the right order.
Yeah, that's true.
But it still has, just by being done as just one grape rather than the two, it kind of leans a different direction.
I think that's true because Grenache tends to move towards a softer, fatter style where the red fruit is a little bit more like juicy and candied, and the spices are a little more warm, whereas Pinot Noir tends to go into a more pure, dark red fruit, and there tends to be a little more black pepper, a little more earthiness, and a little more acid, I think, in Pinot Noir.
I'm gonna jump right into my food pairing because that was like perfect, like softball right there. The food pairing I had with that was some nice cut of pork, a nice bone-in pork chop, a pork loin, something like that, with a fruity, like maybe like dark stone fruit and spicy like sauce, like with what did I have here? With chipotle cherry sauce or habanero peach. Or Thai chili, plum, tied in with your pork, just done with salt and heavy black pepper. So I feel like the descriptors you gave there for this, lending towards the dark fruit, the spice, that's exactly what I was tasting in this as far as how you would eat this. Or even if you're not a meat eater, skip that part of it. Have some peaches and plums and just grill those and get some nice char marks. Put a little barbecue sauce on it, and I think that'd be great with this.
Yeah, those are good pairings. Honestly, they're better than the stuff I had thought of. Jerome's of our family. Jerome is the chef. He cooks just some amazing stuff, especially late night.
I'll take cook, chef. Like you're not a doctor just because you heal people. I cook food. I'm not a chef.
Fair enough. Yeah, but does an amazing job cooking. So we have a question from the crowd.
Tammy says, loving the V6 makes me want a good bolognese.
I could see that. It goes back to the the dark red fruit because tomato is as well, and then you get that all of those flavors, the acidity, the dark fruit. I think that's a great pairing.
Yeah, good pairing. And my pairing on this, I went a slightly different direction. I was thinking because there is some of that spice influence still, and there's a lot of acidity here. I think of like a fatty cut of lamb.
Lamb!
In a Moroccan style. All right, Jalal agrees with the
I was
lamb.
thinking that the whole time.
Whoa.
Yeah, you're like, okay, lamb, right?
I
I mean,
was gonna say lamb.
well, yeah.
You
so
He
just-
always says lamb though.
Yeah, he's working on perfecting a
Kefta burger.
a kefta burger that does not use lamb, that uses cow, but has the spices of a lamb kefta burger and gets that influence. So I kind of thought about that when I was thinking of this pairing. I was like, oh, that kind of spice flavor profile of a kefta burger, but actually with lamb would be awesome with this.
I could see that as well because it's got like those heavier, fattier type of notes on there, where something like a lamb would work real well with that. Because a good lamb, it's got a nice sear, or even actually now that I mentioned that, duck.
Well, yeah,
Duck,
exactly.
seared
Anything
duck with
fatty, this would go great with. So all right. So that being said, my literary pairing with this is from Osho. If you guys don't know Osho, awesome sort of poet writer. Take hold of your own life. See that the whole existence is celebrating. These trees are not serious. These birds are not serious. The rivers and the oceans are wild, and everywhere there is fun. Everywhere there is joy and delight. Watch existence, listen to the existence, and become part of it. So,
I like that.
it's a nice quote. And then,
We learn a lot about you from your literary pairings for
Yeah.
these wines.
It's like, admittedly, sometimes the literary pairings are probably a stretch about matching with the wine. They just are actually quotes I like.
Well, no, I think it works because, and I had this conversation with a few people who were asked about, like, why do you guys do, life experience pairings, music pairings, literary pairings, weed pairings, whiskey pairings, whatever. It's because the whole concept of just doing pairings of food is one of those wine industry truisms that it's just that's the way it's always been done, so that's the way it's done. And that's a big part of why Kevin's been so groundbreaking and why I at least love what he's doing, is because it's more accessible by rethinking a lot of the things that people just wouldn't ever change, whether it's how you're doing the wines or your different woods or what you pair them with. Why isn't a wine a life experience pairing? When you think of things like, something like to me, the perfect example of that is the rosé. You know what that's good for. Hot days, out on the beach, gardening, outdoor. That's not a sitting in the house drinking at night type of wine. And similarly, some of the dark, spicy, smoky ones, they clearly are for more at the end of your night. So why can't things have all these different pairings? Be about the literature and the emotions they evoke, or any number of things that could just be a perfect pairing.
Well, and I think it's funny because the wine industry, we get wine people behind the scenes talking about, like, why can't we connect with people? Why do people look at wine as snooty? And then the answer is usually, we need to educate them. As if the reason people aren't connecting with wine is because they're ignorant, or something. It's like no, why can't we just talk to people about wine on a human level?
Talk to them in their experience, in their references.
Exactly. So I find it crazy. It's like, all right, let's have fun with this. Wine's fun, Let's take it down a notch, So I wanted to give a little bit of shout outs here. I wanted to compliment Eric and Annalise for their banter. They've got a multi-comment back and forth going about song pairings and stuff. It's kind of awesome. I'm half following along as we talk.
And you guys, while we change up the lineup each week, there's a limited number of wines. There were 16, and now there are a few new releases, but there's still only a couple dozen. The more feedback you guys give of pairings, whether it's food or experiences or music, that's going to help us understand how to pair that. And we'll throw those out in later shows, so you'll hear your descriptions used as the official.
Yeah.
I think you should add to your life, music, book, etc. pairings.
Mm-hmm.
Sex position.
Oh.
Sex position pairing. That could be fun.
I like this wine when I'm doing it this way.
The Kama Sutra of wine.
Yeah, it reminds me of Seinfeld. Was it George who wanted to eat while he had sex and watch TV at the same time? So like we could have the wine, food, and sex pairing.
I feel like
I don't know.
drinking
That's
would
a
be
great
a-
idea, Jalal. Thank you.
But what's going to come up with the V3? Wasn't it 200% skin contact? That might be interesting.
Okay. Moving on. So I want to give a shout out to Aaron Lincoln. Threw out a pairing of lamb bolognese. I don't know if I pronounced that right, but I like how he brought the two together. That's very good.
And I think I may have got that wrong, by the way. I think bolognese isn't actually tomato based. Now that I think about it, that's more like a stew. Like
I think that's one of those
chopped
common
vegetable,
misconceptions in cooking. I always get that wrong too. And then Tammy. Those pairings that Jerome's not, or those tasting vials Jerome's not drinking, we'll save those for you, Tammy. Thanks for the thanks for the shout. She was like, why isn't Jerome drinking his? So awesome. Thank you everyone for your comments on all that. So
I'm going to make a special blend to catch up.
there we go.
And by the way, I know I keep jumping off subject, but that's how you can tell it's working. But that's something we're going to do as a later episode that we haven't yet put on the schedule. Is one of the fun things about working with Kevin and being a small company and being experimental wine is that we get to come in and try the wine in different variations, mix a little of this, mix a little of that, see how it works. So we're actually going to have a design it with the winemaker week where you'll be able to get it and mix them together, or maybe we'll have them pre-mixed in different quantities. We're still working out the logistics, and people will get to vote. You'll get to pour them together. Because blending isn't a mystical science. There's a lot of things that you have to do to get it right, but a lot of it is just try it. Pour a little bit of this, pour a little bit of that, see how it tastes. Another one of those things that sometimes get a bad name because people use it to hide bad wine and make it accessible. But sometimes the best wines are two different ones you like poured together. That's not like some low class way to do it when you just got 2 half glasses left. Well, I guess it's that too, but it's also the way fancy winemakers do it. So there's no shame in that, I tell myself.
It's true. It's true. I mean, I actually do that all the time at home. Is either if I'm like, this wine sucks, I blend something else into it, or if the wine's just kind of harsh and I've had it for like 5 or 6 days, I throw in some juice and make a sangria, or I mix beer with wine to create crazy hybrids. I mean, I'm also just this crazy weird
Damn,
experimental guy. Yeah. Sarah Smiles Miles says, "Damn, Gina." I'm hella extra, but yeah. So, all right. That being said, we're gonna roll into this last wine here. Go ahead and pour yourself a taste of the V7 Da Vinci's Wings Zinfandel. This is going to be, this is high elevation Zinfandel. So you're going to notice it's not your jammy style Zinfandel. This is more spicy, more peppery driven. And it was aged, whereas those first 2 wines were aged on cherry wood, this one is aged on a little bit of cherry, but also maple and hickory woods. So you're going to notice it's a little darker, a little richer, a little spicier. That's partly how it's grown, partly the woods used on it. This comes from not only organic, everything here today is organically grown, certified and everything. This is also biodynamically grown by Frank over at Narrow Gate Vineyards in El Dorado County. He does a really cool job. Jerome and I love this guy. I mean, he's just a really nice guy.
His wife too, she's awesome.
Yeah, they're really cool people. And a lot of you guys may know them because a lot of people up in the area, especially around Sacramento, have met them, and they are just some of those genuinely kind people that you can't help but love. He manages his farm in a really cool way too. Biodynamics is like organics plus ecosystem theory. It's treating your farm as an ecosystem and creating a regenerative agricultural cycle that improves the earth and cares for the earth rather than degrading it like a lot of agriculture. So really
they
cool.
don't even they have all these standards to be biodynamic, like you have to reuse your water and you have to use these clean techniques, you can't use the pesticides. But then Frank, he also told me once, there are these levels that you have to meet, and they far exceed them anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But another one, which, a lot of people don't like to talk about, but they actually, fertilizers used. And part of being biodynamic is they actually get the fertilizer from the animals on their farm and then use that to grow and he tells a biodynamic farmer joke where he goes, yeah, some people get a weird feeling about it, but that's how you know we got the good shit. I thought that was funny. It stuck in my head.
Tammy says definitely the spiciest.
Yeah, definitely gets into a spicier category and more acid. So to backtrack just slightly, I just threw out a poll here of whether you liked the Pinot Grenache blend or the 100% Pinot best. So go ahead and throw your comments out there on that. Feel free to comment in the comment section and also just place your vote on the poll. And then I also wanted to get into my pairings for this wine, the V7 Zinfandel. So my life pairing with this is Deep Woods Backpacking with a Good Friend. I think this wine is just a little heavier, a little spicier, a little earthier, and therefore makes sense for camping.
And with the aged on oak with maple and hickory, it really is almost like a walk through the the deep woods.
You get all those woodsy flavors. So the literary pairing with this is from Tom Robbins' Jitterbug Perfume, one of my favorite authors. The quote is, "He was becoming unstuck. He was sure of that. His bones were no longer wrapped in flesh, but in clouds of dust, in hummingbirds, dragonflies, and luminous moths. But so perfect was his equilibrium that he felt no fear. He was vast, he was many, he was dynamic, he was eternal." And I think after the fifth wine, we're all becoming a little unstuck. So, cheers to that.
Cheers.
Yeah, and food pairings, it kind of ties in with a lot of what Kevin was saying, at least what I have on there. Like you're talking about all those different woods, the deep forest, the smoky notes. What I have is anything cooked over an open fire, so you get char and grill marks. I know some people say, carbon is not a taste or a flavor profile. I disagree, and I think the woodsy, smoky notes of that really work well with that. And similarly, anything done where you sort of char it and put a nice crisp on it, and I mean more like a paella or bibimbap, where you let your rice sort of crust up on the bottom. I think this would work really well with those types of dishes.
Yeah, thank you, Joe, on that. My food pairings are much less interesting. Steak, shiitake mushrooms, stir fry, dark sauces. Just essentially, most red wines go with that sort of stuff. Most dark red wines.
And I think it helps to have the two of us give the different angles on it and give what Localis had or Origami had or whoever, because then you get the idea whether, however you're doing it, whatever your flavor profiles are, not everybody's going to do the things that I talk about. You guys all know how to make bibimbap, right?
Steak, a little more straightforward, yeah. For the vegans, all right, it's definitely some more mushrooms, oyster mushrooms, portobello. So yeah, lastly, my music pairing on this is S.O.B. by Nathaniel Ratcliffe. Just a fun song for when you're 5 wines in. So, staying on theme here. And as we're still finishing this wine, Jerome's going to show you guys a little bit about our tasting kits. Many of you who are joining us right now are tasting your kits along with us. Some are just joining us because we're hella amusing.
Give us just one moment. I think the bottle went time down on us.
Oh, all right.
Just that.
Well, so we are going to show you guys the...
While he's doing that and adjusting the technical difficulties, I'm going to go over a brief list of some of the charities we donated to last year. Or some of it wine, some of it money, some of it time. The Sack Tree Foundation, SPCA, Big Brothers Big Sisters, St. John's Center for Change, Children's Receiving Home, American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, Pet Fund, Soulborn Farms, Friend of the River, Front Street Animal Shelter, Veg Fest, Sacramento Environmental Engineering Geologists, or AEG. They're the people who keep us safe while doing work on the rocks. And then local companies like Origami and Localis, and yoga studios like Doma and Yoga Seed, Upcycle Pop, Red Rover, Sac Area Bicycle Advocates, the Sac Vegan Festival, American Marketing Association, and that was actually just me noting down a few real quickly, not a full list.
Yeah.
So
I think
I had that prepared in case I needed to buy time.
His listing there was a way of emphasizing the fact that one of our big values here at Voluptuary Lucid is working with local charities and local businesses. We donate $1 for every bottle to local charities. Last year, all of Voluptuary, we did a $1 bottle to the Sacramento Tree Foundation. We're currently doing $1 from every bottle sold during this time span to charities helping people during COVID. And just we're going to start doing monthly themes with different nonprofits and just trying to work within the community, give back, because we are just so thankful for everything, for everyone's support, and for being part of this awesome community we have here. So
Yeah, the community is what helped us get to where we are now, and we want to give back. Give everybody else the same chances we had. Let me get these adjusted. I'm becoming slightly better at this each week. Slightly. So what you see here is the 3 kits that we have available. And, well, my price list on this single bottle set is missing at the moment. But it's $8 for just the 5 tasters. And that just gives you a chance to play along at home, taste everything, enjoy, and just take part in this experience. And that's what we started with, and then we quickly bumped up to some other sets. The next one we did was the full 5-bottle set, which it varies depending on the lineup, but it's generally about $125. That is, I believe is it 15% off price, Kevin, or 20% off?
20% off with a code that if anyone does hashtags and shares today, we're sending out a code for 20% off the kits, as well as $20 off purchases of 100 or more. So hashtag a friend and share this live video.
Perfect. And so this, you get all 5 bottles, and it's the same ones you have in the mini bottles, but it'll last you a bit longer, or, you know, feed a group, or, you know, help you deal with the existential crisis of quarantine and, you know, the end of the world. The third set we came up with was kind of an in-between set, where, and this is going to be around $35 depending on the lineup, and you get 2 full taster sets and a bottle. And we have the winemaker choose one out. If you have taste preference one way or another, we can take exceptions, but generally we like to suggest one that would go perfectly along out of the lineup. So this one is kind of your dinner for 2. You're in between like taster, if you got 2 of you together and you're doing the pairing. So that's what we have here, and so all of you have some version of this, and they're all available every week. We do this every Saturday at 5, and it's a different lineup each week, a different show each week, and we're going to keep this going even when the world goes back to normal.
Yeah, perfect. So again, thank you all for joining us for this tasting. We're just going to finish up here, and so thank you guys so much for joining us, tasting through all these wines with us. Hopefully you've all enjoyed this lineup. Let us know what your favorites were, and I just posted in the comments a reminder, hashtag a friend, share this video, and we will send you codes for 20% off the kits and $20 off purchases of $100 or more. And yeah, thank you everyone for supporting local small business, ourselves, and our partners. And we'll see you guys again next week. Thank you, Jalal. Thank you, Smiles Miles. All right, later.